Imagine standing on a piece of earth that belongs entirely to you, where the horizon is not obscured by glass towers or the crushing weight of $1 million mortgage. In the vast big expanse of Canada, this dream feels like a fundamental right, yet for millions of citizens, it has become a disappearing mirage. The silence of the northern forest and the rolling hills of the prairies once promised sanctuary for those willing to work the land, but today the economic landscape of the second largest country on earth is scarcity mysticity. As we look toward Dufferson, the map of opportunity is being redrawn by those desperate to escape the urban gravity of Toronto where the cost of living has transcended logic. This is not just a story about real estate, it is a documentary evaluation of a systemic shift in the Canadian identity. It's vidi, a movement born from necessity. It's story parable, to restore for affordable land in an area of unprecedented and areas of unprecedented from images definition of zelbul tuppies volded is. We are witnessing the beginning of the Great Escape, a quiet exodus from the concrete centers toward the raw edges of the map, where the value of a platter soil is measure not chisnaus, but measure tis musican now, possibility of insuring no fight, farms ties. To understand this migration, we must look beyond the glossy brochures of developers and confront the cold reality of 18 dimmer funds down disdel. The mechanics of this economic shock are deeply rooted in the structural imbalances of the domestic market. For decades, the focus remained on the densification of major hubs, creating a feedback loop of rising prices and limited supply. However, the ripple effects of global inflation in the tightening grip of central bank interest rates, the illusions of the urban middle class. When we examine the data for buying land in YSI, we see a clear divergence between the traditional residential market and the burgeoning interest in real property. Investors and families alike are scrutinizing the peripheries of provinces like New Brunswick and Saskatchewan, where the price per crystal reflects a reflectedness that has long since vanished from Parnell. This shift is mirrored in historical precedents such as the land reforms seen during the Wynton's estate crisis or the economic collapses in South America, where the flight to tenable assets became a primary survival strategy. In Canada, the land value is being recalculated through the lens of remote work and the urgent need for food security. The affordable housing crisis is no longer a localized issue but a national emergency that forces a revolution of what it means to invest. We must consider the impact of zoning laws and the hidden cost of developing raw land, from the installation of power lines to the deep drilling for water. The dream of cheap land in Canada is often tempered by the harsh reality of infrastructure deficits. Yet, the momentum is undeniable. As liquidity dries up in the cities, the liquidity of the soil becomes the new frontier. This is a journey through the spreadsheets and the thickets, analyzing how a generation is attempting to bypass the systemic failure of the traditional house model. The search for affordable land is not merely a financial decision, it is a tactical maneuver within a broader economic war. As the Canadian property market faced the headwinds of wide, the traditional metrics of success are being replaced by the rochester of ownerships. The historical context of Canadian land ownership is one of colonial expansion and government grants, but the modern era has seen a consolidation of zildage, revels the joldiches. The concentration of real estate in the hands of a few institutional investors has pushed the average citizen further into the margins. This brings us to the core of the Great Escape, which is the realization that the only way to win the game is to change the board. By looking at real property, buyers are betting on a future where decentralization is the norm. The economic indicators are telling, as we see interest rates building at a higher rate, making the carrying cost of a standard urban home nearly impossible for the average salary. This has led to a surge in interest for unorganized townships where property taxes are minimal and building codes are more flexible. However, this path is fraught with risks that the average investor might not perceive at first glance. The value of land is not just in its size, but in its access to resources. A cheap lot in northern Ontario might seem like a bargain until the cost of heating and transportation is factored in on the northern uncharted. We must analyze the real estate investment landscape with a cold and clinical eye, stripping away the romanticism of the homesteading movement to real the analyzed data movement tire architecture. The global comparison is stark when we look at countries where economic instability led to a resurgence in subsistence farming and rural living. Canada is not at the level of crisis yet, but the signs of systemic stress are visible in the food banks in the 10 cities that now jot the landscape of its most prosperous municipalities. The government and central bank response have been largely reactive, focusing on short-term cooling measures rather than the deep structural reforms needed to unlock the potential of the vast interior. This has created a vacuum that is being filled by adventurous individuals who are willing to trade the convenience of the city for the sovereignty of the bush. The personal survival strategy for Tahiti first involves a diversification of assets, where land represents the ultimate hedge's currency devaluation. As we move deeper into this decade, the distinction between a luxury and a necessity is becoming blurred. For many, a small cabin on a field crest of rural property is no longer a vacation home. It is the primary residence and the only way to avoid the debt trap of the urban rental market. The psychological impact of this shift cannot be overstated. There is a profound sense of anxiety that permeates the discussions about the Canadian economy, a feeling that the old rules no longer apply. Experts point to the long-term cycles of land value and the inevitable correction that follows a period of hyperinflation. The data suggests that while the cities may stagnate, the underdeveloped regions of the country are poised for a slow and steady effort, so as though appreciation as more people realize that the digital economy's vision allows them to live and The challenge lies in the transition. Moving from a high-density environment to a roll-on requires a complete overhaul of personal economy. It is not just about the purchase price, it is about the long-term stability of the lifestyle. We see this in the rising demand for off-grid technologies, from solar arrays to cellular internet, which are the true enablers of the Great Escape. Without these tools, the land remains a beautiful but changeable wilderness. The economic documentary of the current era will regard this period as the Great Recalibration, a time when the myth of endless urban growth was finally confronted by the reality of missions of the deception missions of a Tyson then tins of the karmic mission is government mission of his of his of stamature measures is a mission of his mission business and the measuring of his missions or service. The search for cheap land is a symptom of a much larger ailment, a sign that the social contract of the post-war era has been broken. In its place, a new rugged individualism is emerging, one that is supported by modern technology but rooted in the ancient desire for peace of the earth. As we analyze the property market trends, we must also consider the geopolitical risks that influence the flow of capital into Canadian real estate. The influx of foreign investment has often been blamed for the price hikes, but the internal dynamics of credit and debt are equally responsible. The central bank has a difficult balancing act to perform, trying to curb inflation without triggering a total collapse of the housing sector, which represents as significant worsened efficient relation sick per domestic per best domestic per but. For the individual looking to buy land in Toy Ties clear, do not follow the herd, turn a hard. The value is found in the place that ours have looks in the small towns and the remote counts. In the remote counties that have been forgotten by the modern boom. This requires a level of due diligence that goes beyond a simple web search. It involves walking the boundaries, testing the soil, and understanding the local community. The economic reality is that the era of easy money is over and the era of hard assets has begun. This is the fundamental truth of the Great Escape. It is a movement toward the tangible, toward the things that cannot be diluted, inflated away. The land is the ultimate store of value, and in a world of digital uncertainty, it offers a sense of permanence that no bank account can match. We must also acknowledge the environmental factors that are reshaping the value of Canadian land. As the climate changes, the northern regions that were once considered too harsh for habitation are becoming more attractive. This long-term shift is already being priced into the market by savvy investors who are looking decades ahead. The availability of fresh water and the potential for northern agriculture are becoming key drivers of landfill. This adds another layer of complexity to the search for affordable profitable property, as the cheap land of today may become the premium real of tomorrow. The economic documentary of Canada is being written in the mud and the snow of this new frontiers. It is a story of resilience and adaptation as a population learns to navigate the complexities of a globalist economy's forlornness of a real homestead point of a rural homestead. The impact on personal life is profound as the stresses of the urban race are replaced by the physical demands of land management. This trade-off is one that more and more Canadians are willing to make. The systemic collapse of the affordable housing model has left them with no other choice. To survive and thrive in the coming years, one must be prepared to think outside the traditional boundaries of the real estate market. This means looking at unconventional financing, exploring land trust, and considering communal living arrangements. The Great Escape is not a solitary journey, it is a collective realization that the old ways of living are no longer sustainable. As we look at the examples of historical bankruptcy or the ongoing struggles in our nations, we see those who had ISIS to land and resources were the ones best equipped to weather the storm. Canada is in a U position because of its vast size, but the size only an advantage if it is civil to the people. The current economic policies are being tested by this new reality, and the results will determine the future of the country for generations to come. The land value and Taoist Thai coal will be a reflection of the struggle, a numerical representation of the tension between the old economy, Thai communism there. As we look deeper into the provinces, we find that the maritime region has become a beacon for those seeking a slower piece of life. New Brunswick offers vast tracts of forested land at a price that seem like a relic of the past. However, the influx of buyers from the west is already beginning to push price of work, creating a sense of urgency. In the prairies, the vastness of Saskatchewan provides a different kind of opportunity where the horizon stretches forward and the soil is rich with foreign soil. Here, the challenge is the extreme climate and the isolation from major urban centers. Yet, for those with the right mindset, this isolation is a feature, not a bug. It provides a buffer against the volatility of the global markets and a space to build something truly independent. The Northern Territories represent the final frontier where the land is raw and the challenges are immense. Only the most dedicated will find us here. However, the rewards are a level of sovereignty that is impossible to find anywhere else in the future. I'll find it a country. The role of technology in this migration cannot be ignored. High-speed cellular internet has effectively decoupled work from location, allowing a software engineer or consultant to earn a city salary while living in a cabin in the woods. This is the catalyst that makes the Great Escape possible for the modern professional. It bridges the gap between the digital economy and the physical world. Furthermore, the advancement in solar power and battery storage has made off-grid living more comfortable and reliable than ever before. We are no longer limited by the reach of the power grid. This technological liberation is the foundation upon which the new rural economy is being built. It allows for a level of self-sufficiency that was previously reserved for the most hardy pioneers. As we move forward, we will see more innovations that make the land more accessible and habitable, from modular housing to advanced water filtration systems. These tools are the weapons of the Great Escape, enabling individuals to reclaim their independence from the systemic failures of the urban centers. The financial architecture of land ownership is also evolving. We are seeing the rise of land sharing agreements and cooperative models where groups of individuals pool their resources to purchase large tracts of properties of sticks of property. This allows them to bypass the high entry costs and share the burden of development. It is a return to a more communal way of living, one that is rooted in mutual support and shared goals. This movement is a direct response to the hyper-individualism of the urban environment, where people are often isolated despite being surrounded by millions. In the countryside, the community is a necessity for survival, and this creates a stronger social fabric. The economic benefits of this model are significant, as it reduces the individual risk and allows for more efficient uses of resources. As we look to creative mal, these cooperative models will become providing a viable path for those who would otherwise be priced out to steals. The search for affordable land is thus transforming into a search for a new way of being, one that prioritizes connection and resilience over consumption and debt. As we reach the final chapters of this economic transition, the question remains whether the Great Escape is capable solution or merely a temporary drift from a global trend of consolidation. The Canadian property market in Toy will likely be remembered as the moment when the collective consciousness shifted from the vertical aspiration of the city to the horizontal freedom as the countryside. Finding affordable land is a grueling process that requires more than just capital. It demands a fundamental change in lifestyle and a willingness to embrace the isolation that comes with the frontier. The lessons of fast economic collapses teach us that those who adapt to the new geography of a view are the ones who survive the storm. Whether you are looking at a small lot in the Maritimes or a vast tract in the north, the underlying truth is that the earth remains the only asset they are not making more of. This documentary has sought to peel back the layers of the housing crisis to reveal the grit and the hope to drive the search for a place to call home. As the success over the vast Canadian Shield, the promise of the land remains, waiting for those with the courage to claim it. It is a call to look beyond the charts and the interest rates to find a sense of belonging in the very soul that defined the destination. The Great Escape is not just about leaving something behind, it is about moving toward a future where stability is built on a foundation of your own making, one of Christ vow. Now making I too told The ultimate investment is not found in a digital portfolio, but in the tangible reality of a fence line and a first itch. As the global economy continues its volatile sands, the soil of Canada offers a silent and steady sanctuary for those who wave the vision to see it. This is the end of the search for some and the beginning of a new life for many others. As the great escape transforms from a desperate fly, it plays force for journey toward a more resilient, toward a more in the end does not care about interest rates or market cycles. It only cares about those